Good morning, Lieutenant Jones, Utah County Sheriff's Office. I hope you're having a good day. For all those nice people, they should all have good days.
Everybody should have good days.
You know who should really have a good day? Are the people that aren't nice today. And maybe would make them nicer.
Might
Anyway,
work.
I'm here with Spencer Cannon of the Utah County Sheriff's Office as well. Say hello, Spencer.
Hello, Spencer.
Today we got a special treat for you. We're going to cover a couple of calls that Spencer's going to tell me about. And with that said, it's going to be a little bit longer than usual, but keep your hands and feet inside and enjoy the ride. What happened this weekend, Spencer?
Okay, so it was I hate to use the word routine when we're talking about law enforcement work, but this last weekend there were three calls specifically that we're going to talk about that were routine kind of calls that happen on or calls like them happen on a regular basis. But we're going to do it in a different format here. Y'all, anybody who has been a child or who has young children.
I've been a child.
I've been a child all my life.
You've been a child too? Isn't that weird?
So anybody who has raised children or been a child, when you're learning, you read books. My grandson last week came to me and I read the same book to him 4 different times. Loved the daylights out of it. It was really fun. But when kids get older, then they go from regular small little books that talk about colors and ABCs to what we call chapter books. And that's a really exciting development for children, that they're so excited that they're reading chapter books. So today, we're going to have story time.
I like story time.
And we're going to read a chapter book. Or not really read, but we're going to talk it, and I'm going to ask Lieutenant Jones some questions. He generally knows what these are, but he doesn't know all the specifics because he hasn't read the reports, and I have. So, Lieutenant Jones, last Friday, around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, there were 2 women who went up to Provo Canyon, and they went to Vivian Park. What's one of the activities that people that go to Vivian Park enjoy?
Mostly tubing the Provo River.
This time of year, tubing the Provo River. You get fly fishermen and things like that and people having picnics, but these women went there to tube the Provo River. And when they do this, they'll go up in pairs, and typically they'll leave a car at Vivian Park, and then they'll drive the other car up to where they get in the river so that they have a ride when they get back. And how long does that ride usually take, Lieutenant Jones?
45 minutes?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a guess. I haven't done it, so I'm guessing half hour, 45 minutes.
Yeah, it could be that long, and if they kind of do-dawdle along the way, that's an old word, then it might take them do-dawdle. Take their time.
That's not a word.
If they take their time, it might take a little longer than that. It could take an hour or an hour and a half, anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and a half. So that's what these women did. And when they came down, they went to go to their car. And what's one of the things that we sometimes respond to when people have left their car parked in a relatively isolated area for an extended period? Yes, Lieutenant Jones.
Pick me.
Lieutenant Jones.
I'm going to say Autobergs.
Autobergs. That's the way we refer to them, auto burglary or vehicle burglaries. That means somebody illegally entered their car and did what?
Stole something.
Stole something. Well, what happened
Brings
here?
bad karma when you steal things.
It does.
That's what I've heard.
It does.
Yeah.
So these women left their purses in the car, but the car was locked, and somebody broke into it. They used some kind of a tool to punch in one of the door locks and gained access to the car. And what's one of the things, what are some of the things, Lieutenant Jones, that often get stolen from purses inside cars?
Phones, credit cards, cash.
Very good. In this case, 7 credit or debit cards were stolen from these purses. What happened? Yes, Lieutenant Jones.
Who has 7?
Well, between the 2 of these women, so one of them might have had 2 and one had 5, or one had 3 and one had 4.
Was just checking.
Yeah. So, very, very good question, Jeffrey. Okay.
I'm a cop. Don't have 7.
So when people steal credit cards, what do they often do with them after they steal them?
Well, they rush down to the store and use them quickly before they're reported stolen.
That's true, because what happens when they get reported stolen?
They get shut down.
They get shut down. And that's exactly what happened here. In this case, somebody who stole these credit cards went to Target in Orem. And what's one of the things that sometimes helps us solve these crimes? If they go to a store and spend money on those credit cards.
Well, they know who's doing it because of cameras and credit card companies reporting.
Very good, Lieutenant Jones.
Right.
So we have pictures of them, and I will include that at the end of this video. But that's what happened here, and these women spent a large amount of money, $2,419.05. One of the things they bought was several different gift cards valued at $500. They spent money on personal hygiene items, aspirin, some kind of Spider-Man product, cotton balls, Disney products. Now, we don't know what their motivation is in doing this. Maybe they're just down on their luck. But what might be another reason why people steal something from other people?
Because they can.
Because they can. They just maybe don't care. Maybe they have problems with substance abuse or addiction. Maybe they just don't want to get a job. We don't know in this case. We just know generally what these women look like, and we're going to show you that later. Okay, story number 2, chapter 2 of Story Time. I'm going to skip chronologically here. This happened on August 22nd around 9:10 p.m. in Payson Canyon. Lieutenant Jones, I know you've spent a lot of time in Payson Canyon.
I have.
And
Spent a lot of time in Payson Canyon.
on Saturday nights, I know for a fact Lieutenant Jones has spent a lot of time in Payson Canyon, because sometimes people do things that may be dangerous to themselves or to other people up there. So what happened on this day is that deputies got a call that there was a man who was threatening to kill people at Payson Lake Campground. He was very, very intoxicated. He had consumed a large quantity of alcohol. He stole a golf cart. What's the problem that can happen, Lieutenant Jones, if somebody who has been drinking a lot of alcohol then gets on any kind of vehicle and drives?
Well, he could get DUI, but that's the least of our worries.
Right.
He could hurt himself or others.
Exactly. Now, in this case, there had been a ongoing argument happening, and when this man stole the golf cart, he tried to hit a group of adults and children as he was driving this golf cart.
Let me see if I understand something. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
So you got a guy threatening people in a canyon in Utah.
Yes.
A lot of concealed weapons permits in Utah.
Yes.
This could have ended really poorly
It could
for
have.
him and others. Okay. Anyway.
Okay, we'll carry on. So when the deputies arrived, they got a quick little bit of information that this man had driven down by the lake with the golf cart. So one of the deputies went down toward the lake, and as he was going toward the lake, what do you think he saw coming toward him?
Well, they're obviously the police.
Yes, yeah, he saw the police coming. So
The sheriff's deputy.
the deputy turned around and turned on his lights. And do people always stop when we turn on our lights?
Not always.
It took this
I'm
man.
going to guess he didn't.
He
Please tell
didn't-
me he didn't.
He didn't
Oh,
right
no.
away.
See, because I was right. That makes
You
me
were
mad.
right. He didn't stop right away. He drove at a short distance further until finally he stopped. And in situations like that, they are always cooperative. Is that true?
Not true.
That is not
I
true.
think you're lying. I think that was a trick to see if I was paying attention.
You are paying
I'm paying
attention.
Are you paying attention?
So this man was not cooperating. It took 2 deputies to get handcuffs on this man because he refused to even get off of or out of the golf cart. So he went in the seat of the deputy's car with handcuffs on, and the deputy was outside talking to people. And what sometimes happens when you leave somebody in a car, in a police vehicle, that doesn't have a cage, but he has handcuffs on and a seatbelt? Do they always stay right there?
I'm guessing he didn't. That's my guess, because it sounds like he's not really cooperating much.
No, he didn't stay there. In fact, he tried to climb over into the driver's seat of the car and drive the police car. Fortunately, the deputy and a kind citizen who was there worked together to get this man out of the car. But while that was happening, and this man who had stolen the golf cart was not cooperating, what sometimes happens as they're trying to get them out of the car?
Sometimes they fight.
Sometimes they fight.
Fighting's not good.
And this man, who was very intoxicated, he kicked the deputy and the other man who were trying to get him out of the car.
Kicking's not nice.
No, kicking is not nice.
That's not nice.
Not nice.
No.
So after they got all the information from the people who saw this happening, then one of the deputies who did have a cage, prisoner cage, in his sheriff's vehicle, took him to the hospital while the other deputy followed, because this man was injured, and they had to take him to the hospital to make sure that he wasn't so seriously injured that it would be a problem later, and before they took him to jail. Yes, Lieutenant Jones.
Is this going to end up with him kicking and fighting at the hospital too?
You've been there before, haven't you,
That's
Lieutenant
what's going to
Jones?
happen, isn't it?
So they get to the hospital, and the nice nurses and doctors at the hospital tried to help this man, and he kicked one of them, and you know what happened to one of them? He broke his finger. This man kicked this hospital worker, and this hospital worker broke his finger because this man didn't like him. So there were a lot of bad things that happened. Eventually, a doctor talked to him, and this man did calm down a little bit, and the doctor was able to see that while he did have some injuries, they weren't so serious that he wouldn't be able to go to jail. But it was a scary thing. This man had many different charges. He had vehicle theft because, believe it or not, a golf cart is considered a vehicle, and he stole that. He was charged and booked into jail for DUI, resisting arrest, obstruction of justice, assault of a health care provider. There is a separate statute in Utah Code that allows for a charge to be filed if somebody assaults a health care worker. He refused to provide his name, and disorderly conduct, and assault by a prisoner, and aggravated assault, both of which are third-degree felonies. So this man faces a lot of trouble.
I hope this man is having a better day today.
I hope so too.
I do.
We honestly do hope so. Okay.
That's not a joke.
The next chapter. This happened again late Friday night at about 11:30 p.m. at a place called Holman Flat. Holman Flat is in American Fork Canyon, just a short distance above Tibble Fork Reservoir. Very popular place for people to go during the daytime. Tibble Fork is incredibly popular, very, very busy. Holman Flat is along Snake Creek Road, or more commonly referred to as Mineral Basin Road. A lot of places to go camping along there and have a good time with your family.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful place.
So there were two deputies that night who had been working in the canyon for several hours, starting over in Provo Canyon and coming up over the top and down into American Fork Canyon, ending up here at Holman Flat. They were checking campfires. And why would we be checking campfires this time of year, Lieutenant
Because
Jones?
there are restrictions. We're at a level 5, some whatever that is, and one ember can destroy a whole canyon and several homes. Bad idea this time of year.
And there are homes up in that area. There are cabins up near Tibble Fork Reservoir. There's a lot of vegetation and trees, and it's risky. Right now, fire danger is extreme, and the Forest Service has issued restrictions that campfires can only be in organized campgrounds with fire pits built by the Forest Service in the Uinta-Wasatch Cache National Forest. So they were checking people, and most of the time when we encounter people at fires, do we always write them a ticket for having a fire when they're not supposed to?
No, sometimes they just get a warning.
Most of the time. Would
Please.
that be accurate?
Yeah, please put the fire out, because there are fire. Just kind of reminding people. We don't want to go giving everybody a ticket. We want to just say, hey, you know what? Put the fire out, because there's it's education. That's what we're about.
So on this occasion at Holman Flat, the fire didn't become an issue. They were cooperative as it relates to the fire. But one of the deputies, as she was standing off to the side while the other deputy made the initial contact, she's standing next to a car, and she smells an odor of burned marijuana coming from inside a car that she's standing next to. It's a very strong odor. It's not something that you go in there necessarily expecting to smell, but you're standing there and think all of a sudden, oh my goodness, that's alcohol, or that's marijuana. In this case, it was burned marijuana that she smelled. They got this gentleman out of the car. He had, as she looked in the car, he had a marijuana cigarette, or sometimes referred to as a blunt, or a doobie. We hope
Like the
none of
Doobie
you-
Brothers?
Yeah, as a matter of fact.
Is that why they're named that?
Yeah, if you see one of their album covers from the 70s, right there on the cover. Yeah.
Well,
They make-
Blackwater's playing in my head right now. But it's cool.
They make great music despite maybe some of their personal habits. But anyway, so
maybe because of their personal habits.
or maybe because of their personal habits, a combination of the two maybe. So
I'm not judging. Anyway,
this gentleman claimed that he had a marijuana medical card, which they do issue those in Utah now, but he did not have it with him. But under Utah's medical marijuana law, Lieutenant Jones, do you know what one of the restrictions on that is?
I know a lot of the restrictions, but the one you're looking for, I am not going to try to guess.
Okay, the one I'm thinking of is Utah law does not allow you to ingest medical marijuana by smoking it, nor can you ingest medical marijuana by burning any other form of marijuana or heating it so that it creates vapors and inhaling them that way. It can only be ingested orally. That's all that Utah law allows. And dispensaries are or will be active in Utah now, but this gentleman was not using marijuana correctly. He had family there with him, and as the deputies got him out of the car, they searched the car, and what do you think they found in the car?
Marijuana.
They did find marijuana in the car. And sometimes there's other things that we find in cars when we are searching for marijuana. What do you think that might be, Lieutenant Jones?
I'm going to guess other drugs.
Very good. And what's one of the most common drugs we find with marijuana?
Methamphetamine.
Methamphetamine. These are what some reporters would call softball questions. But Lieutenant Jones is smart, so he does know these answers. So they found all this information. The other information they found about this person is that this was not his first interaction with police officers or with deputy sheriffs. In fact, in April of 2020, this man had just been released from prison and he was on parole. He had charges including drug-related charges in his criminal history. He had attempted homicide charges that it doesn't show he was convicted for, but it was an assault kind of a situation. He had other crimes of violence, domestic violence related charges, so he had a long history with this. But what's one of the things, Lieutenant Jones, that we have discovered about people who are in situations like this and have a history like this man did when they have family with them, especially young children? Do those children know that Daddy is a criminal?
No, they don't. They don't usually know.
How does that impact these young children, Lieutenant Jones?
It's devastating to them. It's absolutely devastating, and it's unfair to everybody involved. And again, paints a picture of us that we are picking on people, which just isn't the case.
So let me tell you a little bit more about this. This gentleman, he was cooperative with us. We were grateful for that. As he had been placed in handcuffs and his child was there, 4-year-old child, what do sometimes these people want to do before we take them away?
Give them a hug.
Give them a hug. He asked if he could give his child, his 4-year-old child, a hug and a kiss before he left. Now, you might think that we're cold-hearted and that we just want numbers, but I'll tell you, one of the hardest things that we ever have to see is the tears in the eyes of a 4-year-old child whose parent is going away and they don't know why. This is serious stuff. You know, we've brought to you today story time. This is the part we don't want to make light of. At least 2 of these situations involved substance abuse and addictive behavior. Ongoing, long-term addictive behavior. The women who stole the credit cards, or at least used the credit cards, we assume they're the ones who also stole them. It's possible and maybe even likely that they also have substance abuse problems. And we don't believe that in most cases they engage in substance abuse behaviors because they're stealing things. Maybe they're stealing things because they're engaged in substance abuse related behaviors. What are your thoughts on that, Lieutenant Jones?
I'll tell you this. here at the sheriff's office, we view everybody as a human, and we understand weaknesses, we understand those issues, and we do want these people to get help. I think there's a misnomer out there that that's not how we feel, but it is how we feel. And whatever those reasons are that push these people to doing whatever they're doing, we do make light at the first of this, but this is a serious issue. And it's happening in our canyons. And the damage that could have happened, I mean, you look back at the golf cart incident, somebody could have ended up taking his life and been justified in doing it, and that would impact them for the rest of their life because he chose to do whatever substance. Our goal at the sheriff's office is, when we find these people, is to help them think, or think for them as they would 24 to 48 hours down the road when they're sobered up and they wouldn't be thinking that way. So whatever leads them to that, we want them to get help, and we do have means to do that here at the jail, but that's kind of how I feel about it.
I agree completely. Most of the officers and deputies that I've worked with in my nearly 30 years, and your nearly 30 years, most of us are in this not for the entertainment value, although sometimes we get some laughs, but that's not why we do this. We do this to help people who aren't making good choices. I have long considered that what we do may very well be the first step in substance abuse treatment. Many people will not go on their own and get treatment when it is clearly needed, and so we provide them an opportunity to stand before a judge and be given some direction on what to do. Now, would we like to be able to not have to incarcerate them? Of course we would rather they get the treatment and have that treatment work. But when it doesn't, we have to protect society from people who are doing things like stealing credit cards and making people's lives difficult, like people who are using drugs around their 4-year-old child who just knows that this is daddy, and from people who are driving stolen golf carts while they're intoxicated, risking their life and the lives of others, or maybe even intentionally, as was the case in that situation. So we want to provide people an opportunity to do that, and sometimes it's necessary to protect society from people who refuse to make those choices on their own. So we bring the horse to water, so to speak. They have to choose whether or not they want to drink that service.
And with that said, society's spending a lot of time looking at the perpetrator side, looking at what's causing them to do that. But I want you to think about this one thing in closing, and that is this. If you were up camping and somebody came and threatened you and said they were going to kill you, started to chase you down with a golf cart, how does that impact the rest of your day? How does that impact your day then? And I think that anybody could agree that that is going to be detrimental. Think about the people that just lost 7 credit cards that have to deal with the backlash of that, getting their car fixed, getting their cards canceled, getting their stuff back. That feeling of being violated because somebody's taken your stuff, that's an impact.
It's a huge impact.
And it is impact. And let's go back to the family of the guy in the canyon with the meth and the marijuana. What impact does that have on that little girl or little boy, whatever? I don't remember.
It was a 4-year-old child.
Whatever that child was, that impact that's going to happen to them, that's what we're talking about. And you want to pretend like this is victimless. It's not. Because I'm telling you, there is DUIs on methamphetamines. There are DUIs on marijuana. It happens. These things happen, and that's how it impacts the victims. We'll remember them. So that's how I feel.
Yeah, I agree completely. And think about this last thought. After that gentleman was taken to jail, leaving his 4-year-old child, the next night, before he gets out of jail, when mom is putting that 4-year-old to bed, is it possible that 4-year-old might say, "Mom, where's Daddy?"
Right.
And what does she have to say?
Right. So, again, don't do bad things. Always do good things.